Thank you, Gloria. Well, we're still staying on this particular matter and some others. Joining us to look at it is the former Dean, Faculty of Law, a Professor of Law, Oyewo. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank
when
you
saw that video, that visual, when the news broke, I'd like to ask the question, what came to your mind on that day?
Well, the video tells a very interesting story. We could see that when we are in an election, period, because hitherto there's been some semblance of sanity in the relationship between the executive and the legislature, but now the stakes are high. So the gloves are off, and the combatants are ready to do battle. The police has been used as an instrument of the executive, and this is not the first time. We've been saying it at the state houses of assembly. And the point is, if they come to take somebody that occupies a similar position like you, and you don't protest, and you don't voice your dissent to the activities, the day they come to take you, there'll be nobody to protest.
You want to tell us more on that?
The point, police have been used in state houses of assemblies by the executive or by the ruling party. What the National Assembly has always done was, after the fact, to send some people without negotiating with the executive at the central, to stop the wrong use of the police. We saw this in Port Harcourt, in Edo State, in Ekiti State, in so many states. So basically, their constituency, the legislative constituency, had been eroded by the use of force. So the natural, logical extension of this was to come for the National Assembly. And the political use of the police was predicated on the seeming political alternation, although de facto, that is going on in the National Assembly, in the sense that the majority of the ruling party, PDP, was being eroded, and symbolically, the Speaker of the House in the hallowed chambers of the National Assembly defected to the APC. Of course, this will have the ruling party in kind of, a knee-jerk reaction that we must not condone this. Unfortunately, the extreme exercise of powers by the executive did not only go to the National Assembly, but actually went to every Nigerian who had a representation in the parliament. Because don't let us forget that the legislature is the epitome and the symbol of democratic parties. Because once you invade the legislature, it's a throwback to military era. And there's no doubt about it that if the political leadership in Nigeria does not take time, there will be breakdown of law and order. Because if you can do it to the senator, if you can do it to the members of the House of Rep, you can do it to any Nigerian.
Well, we played those comments, just so that you'd see some of the comments that have come in the wake of that, especially from legal practitioners. The last legal practitioner said that it is unjustifiable for, you have also said it, that it would seem that the PDP resorted to some measure of self-help, as it were.
Yes.
But it would seem also that the lawmakers also resorted to some self-help as well. Can we justify one self-help against the other? Do you think it is justifiable?
Two wrongs can never make a right. Mm-hmm. But when the person that's supposed to protect and ensure law and order, the police, now takes the law into its own hands against the lawmakers, it neutralizes the rules. It becomes something that people throw themselves back to nature. As far as the National Assembly or House of Rep members were concerned, the police stood in their way for them to get to into their chambers. And if you ask me, they won that day because they were able to sit, irrespective of all the forces that was arrayed against them, the tear gassing, the barricading. And like somebody observed, there was selective, screening, while some members had some free access into the hallowed ground of the National Assembly. Some did not. But those that did not, they took the law into their own hands and lost the reputation of being honorable. Because it is not very honorable to see a father climbing over the walls. You ask yourself, if you come to your house and you find the door barricaded, are you going to be climbing over the wall to get into the house to prove that you are the owner of the house? I think that defies logic. And that's where, you know, it will have been more honorable if they gathered even outside and the press covered them and they were able to show that they are even more honorable than those that resorted to the force. So by this act, I think both of them have lost the respect of being honorable and occupying exalted position of leadership in Nigeria. And one must, you know, here sound a warning to those who lead us. In the past, people say that history is supposed to teach us a lesson. But in Nigeria, you find out our politicians, they learn nothing. They behave like if they own the whole world. You are elected into an office for 4 years. At best, you have, you know, automatic ticket for a return. After that, you must come out of that. And then you'll find out that it's after they've come out, you'll be hearing the best philosophical, you know, dispensation of leadership advice. Why don't you do the thing while you are there? Because they have the opportunity now.
In other words, they knew all the while.
Of course, they know that they are playing games. And in fact, the games they play, they do not care as long as they are personal interests. Whether the executive or the legislature, at this particular point in time, is self-interest all the way.
Professor Oyewo, you know, nation first is what I'm getting from you now, because it is very key that we save the nation, we protect what is ours, irrespective of whether you're a politician or an institution that has actually been derailed by some few individuals. Looking at what you have highlighted, talking about logic and looking at what we have seen there from the police, which is an arm of the executive, and of course the legislature, some of the legislators there we saw their conduct. How can we streamline all of this? Because when you talk about history, recall what happened before 1983 during the President Shagari. We also had austerity measure at that time. Yeah. And now we're getting to see austerity measure coming in now again and getting to see conduct like this leading up to an election. How can we get ourselves, escape out of this brewing trouble, it would seem?
Well, the problem, I believe, will subside after the election. This is, you know, a beating of the drums of war, and the crescendo will be when the elections are done. And when the elections are done, definitely you now find a crest falling. People will go to court to challenge elections, and then we will return back to normal.
That's where I'll come into the judiciary. We talked about the judiciary. They can really help a whole lot. In fact, that would take us to Taraba, and we'll look at Ekiti pretty soon. But again, if you look at the judiciary, how powerful the judiciary is, it would seem as if, I was speaking with a lawyer yesterday, it would seem as if the judiciary has been asleep to some extent, because if they had moved the way we had expected them to be moving, we see that they have been able to sort so many of these issues. A case in point is Taraba. The moment the judgment dropped, we saw some form of peace in that particular state. How is it that we haven't been able to see all of that coming into some of these issues, even in the National Assembly, those who moved camp to the APC, the case is still in court, and of course the Speaker has also joined in that particular matter. The judiciary, is it slow in giving us results?
Well, I think you have to be able to position the judiciary within the proper perspective. The judiciary is not self-executing, and it's not even self-selective of issues that comes before it. It is we, the litigants, that go before them. And then the judiciary is structured in a way that even when matters start from the trial court, like in the case of Taraba you mentioned, this happened in 2012, and it got to the courts in 2014, towards the end of the tenure of the... So judiciary will lay precedent. But the point is, will we be guided by precedent? If you want to take Taraba, let's even use Taraba as an example. Because before then, the provisions of the Constitution, Section 188, relating to impeachment, had been interpreted as far back as Inakoju and Adeleke by the Supreme Court. And we still have such things going on even in Ekiti State. Judiciary is just one of the mechanisms for conflict resolution in Nigeria. It's not in fact, it's supposed to be the last resort. What we need to see is the coming together. Look at Ghana, for instance. When Ghana decided to have this democratic arrangement, the politicians came together. They have a code of ethics. They have a conflict resolution body within the political system made up of political parties. So we have what you call political process for resolving political conflicts. You cannot be using the judiciary as a form of mechanism for resolving political crisis. You will know that even in constitutional law, the judiciary is supposed to get out of what you call political tickets. Don't enter into the bush of politics, because you will have thorns and thistles that will tear your, the judiciary is not so equipped to function as the umpire in political, contest. It is supposed to address legal issues, and that's why it's a court of justice. And of course, in politics, there must be justice and equity. There are those issues where the judiciary is well suited. But above all, we must have political leaders who are ready to observe the rule of law.